Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Dr. Cammy Goes Keto, where we are here with Mike Collins, the sugardetox.com man, the sugar-free man, and we're here to talk about my adjustment to a ketogenic lifestyle. And Mike and I were talking a little bit before we started recording about how I'm feeling just a little down lately. And I think it might be related to me not drinking a lot of caffeine because I was drinking caffeine when I was with my girlfriends on vacation, like 2 big cups of coffee a day. And now I'm not, I'm drinking maybe 1 or 2 decaf coffees a day and feeling a little down, just feeling a little low. And yeah, so just kind of checking in with that today.
So we talked before we came on, and you're having difficulty, and that this would be the first time that you've ever talked about being down. You have a real positive attitude, have had, and still have a very positive attitude through this entire process, which is amazing, and I think has helped hundreds and thousands, maybe, of people. But you were really pretty honest a few minutes ago, so maybe you should continue telling the folks how you're actually feeling and why you think that.
Yeah. So I went to Costco, I went shopping at Costco, and there were people there that had food in their cart that's like food that I don't eat, and there was alcohol in people's carts, and I was kind of thinking about like, "Oh, look, that nice couple is gonna go home and have a glass of that brandy tonight," and kind of fantasizing about things, and just feeling I guess kind of feeling sorry for myself, and that kind of aggravates me a little bit to be feeling that way because there's so many things that I have to be grateful for, so then like some guilt and shame comes into the picture, and then but you know what? I'm human and I'm going to have days that are harder to deal with than other days. And I was listening to I'm doing some videos on food addiction, which have been fascinating to become a metabolic health practitioner. And there
Cool.
was a wonderful video there by Rob Siwas, and he was talking about food addiction, and he was talking about how oh, no, I think this might have been Robert Lustig that was talking about whether or not these things are addictive, which were sugar, flour, salt, fat. No, sugar, salt, caffeine, and fat. Those were the 4 things that we were looking at. And he gave clinical evidence. It was very interesting. And he talked about sugar, no, fat, no. But those are things that kind of augment did I say salt or sugar?
Sugar, you said no.
Oh, no, 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 that's not right. Sorry about that.
You were
No, no, he said salt is not addictive, fat is not addictive, but the sugar and the caffeine are both addictive. And he gave evidence for it and like scientific backing of it. And it was really a great lecture. And so that made me think about how I need to be off of this sugar and caffeine and I went on vacation with my girlfriends and I drank coffee all the time, 2 big cups in the morning with them that was regular coffee. And now I'm home and I'm off the coffee, and except for these, like, maybe 1 or 2 cups of decaf a day, which I'm interested in getting that completely out too. But, I think that's why I'm feeling down, and because nothing else really makes sense to me right now, like, my life is going really good, everything's fine, everything in my condo's working, and my kids are doing well, and my cat's okay and everything's, life is good. So yeah, but just feeling down, just not being motivated. Mike and I did another video previously that I didn't even get out and, up and posted yet, and just kind of dropping the ball on a lot of things that I'm supposed to be doing and just feeling down. And the
Mm.
other thing that we had talked about was that I'm pulling off of my Cymbalta medication and, getting rid of it because I don't want things influencing my serotonin and dopamine unless they're naturally influencing them. And I've been on Cymbalta since 2005 when my son passed away. So that's what, 21 years now, going on 21 years. And so I started at 60 milligrams and I was at 40. Now I'm at 30, and there's 20 milligrams at the pharmacy that I can go and get and start to continue to decrease it. So I think that some of that system is coming alive. And I think that I've noticed, like, when I'm lonely or sad or frustrated or like feeling less than, I think I'm feeling those feelings more then I'm feeling the joy and pleasure. I think I pay attention to those other feelings more than the joy and pleasure because I have had joyful days too and joyful moments, joyful time. But yeah, just feeling kind of down today.
Well, and we talked about before we came on the idea that, you got a little bit of a double whammy going there. You got and I think if we can use it as a teaching moment and you can write it in your journal and you can remember it, that after whatever it's been, a long time off of caffeine and then a consistent bender there with the friends and drinking quite a bit, that there's going to be a physical, I mean, I run a small caffeine group, but there's a large caffeine group that I used to pay attention to until I got bounced out of it because I forget, I must have said something about sugar. But the stories of what you're saying are so amazing. They last months of anhedonia, months of not being able to feel any joy in life and being depressed. And because it's a mature group, you see the people that come out the other side and finally heal. But it's a tough go, you know. And we talked about you being sensitive, along the lines of Elaine Aron's highly sensitive person to light and sound and substances, and we just have a higher level of sensitivity. And I believe that to be true. And Cymbalta, there's nothing else. Is that the last one, or is there can you say isn't Cymbalta an additional one? Is there another one, or those are the only ones left?
That I'm taking? No, I still am taking Abilify,
Yeah.
the aripiprazole, which is a antipsychotic, and it's a mood stabilizer.
Yeah.
And that one I'm not interested in touching just yet,
Yeah. So
if
again, I mean,
ever.
I was giving you a little bit of, and I'm gonna do it again, maybe for the audience and maybe for myself and maybe for you. I don't know, but I think it's my truth and I need to speak it, is that, when I first got sober in Narcotics Anonymous, there were a lot of people who were taking these types of drugs and they were almost marginalized. And so I grew up with a prejudice. In other words, they believed that they were not sober. They were not clean when they were taking these things. And I grew up believing that. Now I don't believe it anymore. I do believe in Suboxone and I do believe in some level of effective use of the stuff that you're taking. But I also believe it's a catalyst and a way to move towards a life that doesn't include these things. I think it's criminal in a lot of ways that they would prescribe things for decades like this. And I just think it's difficult to get all the way through and out the other side on all this if you don't go back to zero. You don't go back to not having any. And I think you're doing it right. You're titrating down under the guidance of a professional, and that's what you need to do. Even though you are the professional, you'd be a terrible client. You know what I mean? We'd all be us addicts would be terrible client. But I think it's just a thing you need to go through. And one of the parts of it is being down a little bit sometimes till you really kind of get your footing and your feet on the ground as far as with nothing in your system, and that
Mhm.
see how much the gym affected you and how much yoga affected you and how much what you eat affected you and the air and the sleep and all that. So you can kind of come back to understanding all that, right? And so it's a pivotal time, I mean, there's no known understanding exactly what's going on yet in your brain, but likely, the tragedies that were the death of your children are still locked in your body in a lot of ways. They're locked in there. That is, the products are numbing the feelings and the whole Bether Van der Kolk body keeps a score kind of stuff. And Gabor Mate and I'm a big fan of Kelly Brogan, who she's gone in a little bit of a different direction now, but her first two books were about this exact phenomena, why women, it's mostly women for her, were prescribed these drugs and how to get off them and what the path is to finding out why you originally got on them, which was you were unhappy with a life that happened or maybe events or whatever. And both books, two books, her first two books, I think, first two famous books anyway, talk about this exact topic, and that the only way out the other side is through this downturn in feelings, this blueness and depression a little bit.
Mhm.
But I don't believe it is as a depression, meaning that you're depressed. And like, so everyone knows, I'm not a doctor and I don't play one on the internet. But this is, 41 years as of a couple days ago of sobriety and working with addicts and alcoholics, over the years and sponsoring and, working with, tens of thousands of sugar addicts and thousands of irregular addicts before that. It's an experience of watching people go through all this, right? And the legal prescribed stuff, it came to a head a little bit about 20 some odd years ago
Mhm.
when, um, it was basically the World Service even changed it. It said, shut the hell up about people that are prescribed stuff. It's okay. You know, these old big book thumpers couldn't bully new people who are on prescribed medications, and so it's a thing, and Kelly Brogan is not the only one who talks about this stuff. I mean, I feel it's your path, and I'd love to see you embark on it. I think you are. I take that back. You are embarking on it with this reduction of the Cymbalta, and then eventually maybe you'll. Yeah, whenever you want to get to the other one later, that's fine. But it's not easy. No one ever going to tell you. No one should ever tell you it is. So, and we're going to find out. You're going to find out what your real feelings are about all what's trapped. And I don't know. I'm rambling a little bit, but what do you think?
Well, I think it will be interesting to see what happens because when my son passed away in 2005, which was my second loss, my first son passed away 10 years before that. I did not want to go through it again. I wanted to die, and I knew that I couldn't do that because I had these two boys that were 7 and 9, and I needed to stick around to raise them. That was my job as a parent and a mother. And so I went on the medication immediately because I was afraid. I was afraid I was going to fall apart. And I couldn't do that. I had to work 60 hours a week as a doctor and a surgeon, and I had these kids to raise, and I needed to get them through college, and I couldn't fall apart. Like, that wasn't an option for me. And so that's why I went on it immediately before I even started having symptoms or anything.
Mm.
And, so now I can fall apart,
Well, I say the same thing. And I don't know how much I can't remember on one podcast to the next and different one, how much I told you about what I call the dark night of the soul. I think there's this episode where I tell the whole story and it ain't pretty. Nobody signs up for that shit. Let me tell you, I wouldn't have signed up for it if I knew it was coming,
Well, see,
but
that's my fear right now. It's like, hey, if I stay on my Cymbalta and I stay on my Abilify and I don't go through the dark night of the soul, right?
yeah,
I'll never have to go through it. But then yet I'll never be able to grow and like be fully capable of what else I could do out there in the world
yes.
to help others.
I've said this before and I'll say it again. It bears repeating, and I hope my boys never hear it. But above the birth of my children, that was and remains the most important experience of my life. It genuinely was. I couldn't have been the father. I couldn't have done anything. I would have died. Something would have happened. I would have, I would have gone back to using drugs and alcohol. Genuinely. I mean, I would not have been here 41 years sober. That experience, and you've built the infrastructure that I had. I had the infrastructure that I had was meetings. I had a men's group. I had a therapy group. I had a therapist. I had a sponsor. I had it all. There was people that I trusted that I could reach out to when I was losing my mind. It was at the height of the men's movement. If you remember this, but Robert Bly and Sam Keen and all these guys were writing books about the men's, and guys we were going, we'd go in the woods and do the whole men's men's meeting thing. I mean, I had like 20 guys and women too, but mostly men who supported me through this. My father flew down from New York because they were all worried about me because, you know what I mean? It was a weird time. And after reading Gabor and Bether van der Kolk and stuff, now I know what it was, but we didn't have those books back then.
Yeah.
I don't envy you where you are, because all of your, not only the deaths of the children, but all of your dysfunction and pain is, see, the thing that this is a very interesting topic in that no one's ever been sufficiently able to answer the question to me. If you have to feel these feelings one for one, the ones that you stuffed down or tamped down or didn't feel or blocked, do you have to go through them like you're going through them for the first time? Like if you were healthy and never had any substances to use, right? It sure as hell felt like that for that 4 6 months or whatever I was going through it. And it was probably a year total, but the worst part was 4 to 5 6 months, before I felt normal again or whatever. I would cry like, every day for sure, but sometimes multiple times a day. I didn't know what was happening to me, really, genuinely. No one really knew. They were able to support me from different angles, the therapist, the
Yeah.
group, the men, the meetings, the spots. Everybody had a different approach and all of them were valid. But moreover, they were there. That was and they didn't think I was crazy. That I think is the more important part. There was no buck it up and get over it shit going on. None. Zero. And they were just supportive. And I think you have that group around you in a lot
Mhm.
of different parts of your life. So
I do. I have a lot of support, and I have the books, right? I
yeah,
have the knowledge. I have experts that have written on it and then can
yeah,
show me that what I'm going through is
normal.
normal. It's not unusual for the situation that I'm in.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think you nailed it on the head with the two things. One, I'm afraid. I'm petrified. And two, I have time to fall apart now, which is really, I think, in essence, the reason more people don't do this type of work, because they just don't have time. I was just divorced, and that was part of that was the catalyst, actually. The final quitting of flour, the quitting of television for that 6 months, and moving out of the house, right? That moving into it. That was the catalyst for the beginning of it all. And whatever that gets you there, I think is okay. And I think you're just forestalling it in a lot of ways with the mini binges every once in a while and the SSRIs. But again, I don't like if people say that I don't have another recovery in me. I definitely don't have another dark night of the soul in me. But the way out was and is the whole Ann Wilson Chef living in process. So you handle the emotions as they come when you get to the other side. You handle them differently than tamping them down or anesthetizing them, right? You handle them by, you got a crappy week, you got to go to 2 yoga classes on Friday and Saturday. You know what I mean? You can't just, or you got to walk all weekend or go do a 5K walk with your friend. You can't just forget about it. You can't just go take cookies or,
Mhm.
some Malta and forget about it. It doesn't work that way. It shouldn't work that way. It's a terrible thing to say, but it's true. It shouldn't work that way.
Well, and it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work. It feels like a Band-Aid on a dam, you know? And and the other thing too that I really want is I want freedom around my food. Like look at how you have freedom around your food. You have freedom around the alcohol, which by the way, congratulations on 41 years. That's really, really wonderful. I'm so happy for you. I knew it was soon. I was talking to somebody yesterday and I was like, yeah, it's coming up. About that, and I'm really impressed with that. That's absolutely wonderful, and I'm so happy for you. And the freedom that it gives, right? Like the freedom that you get from restricting alcohol from your life, it just seems counterintuitive a little bit, but I want that freedom around food.
You can get it. You really can. I really believe that. I think you're on that path. And you've helped so many other people. It's time to let us help you, support you, and all of the infrastructure of support that you've built around you to get over what I actually never got over it. I never got over this asking for help. I'm probably still not over it. I'm not very good at it. I was just like a cocoon wrapped around because I had built the relationships in the therapy groups and the men's meetings and the regular meetings and the therapist and the sponsors and the friends. They just literally came to my rescue. Like I didn't ask very often, and probably should have probably gone faster if I had for that kind of support. And I think you're in that place, whether you ask or not, the people will be there, you know. And I think it's more powerful for anyone listening to ask for support in this process. If, you know, similar processes, to ask, not to just wait, or, you know, not to go use instead of asking or whatever.
Yeah, so you reach out, you do,
Reaching out.
you pull out your toolbox and you start using all the tools that you have there for support.
Correct. You pick up the phone, yeah.
Yeah.
Go
Well,
to go to a gym, whatever.
yeah, like last night I did my yoga. I did my, 20 minutes of stretching last night because I just knew I needed it because my
Right.
muscles were so tight from going to the gym, part of
Yeah.
it. But yeah, so I'm kind of I'm kind of and getting to the end of this video like thinking I'm happy that I'm down because I
That
remember.
that's growth. That's important.
Yeah, like, I remember when I first pulled off of the Cymbalta, I was on 60, and then I got to 40, and I was on 40 for a month, and then I went to 30, and I was on 30 for 2 months. Now I'm coming up getting ready to go on 20, and I'm like, "God, well, what's gonna happen?" When am I gonna wake up and start feeling my feelings and emotions, start really feeling stuff? And here it comes. I think it's coming as a little bit of a down feeling to start. And and the other thing that I wanna do is I want to pay attention to when my up times are because I think it's easier for me to pay attention to when the down times are. And so when I'm having some up times, I'm going to really acknowledge that and pay attention to that and maybe reach out and call somebody, and share some of the good times that I'm having as opposed to needing to call somebody every time I'm down or thinking about eating whatever or, drinking whatever, caffeine.
Say that again a different way. You don't wanna do what? I don't get it.
So, whenever I'm down or I feel like using food to comfort or soothe myself or have, doing an unhealthy coping mechanism, I'm interested in, I reach out. Like that's when I call people. That's when I journal. That's when I take a nap. That's when I go for a walk. That's when I do all those things. But when things are good, when things are going good, I
Uh,
tend to feel like, well, yeah, things are great. Things are good. Well, yeah, that's the way that's how it's supposed to be. That's the way that you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be happy. You're supposed to be
and you
eating
don't
right.
share it with people.
And I don't share it with people.
Yeah, okay.
And so, like, I'm interested in sharing that more with people.
Well, let me at least in my experience, okay, my mother had this line that I hated, then I came to hate, called "Not too much shining." Don't tell other people how
Mm,
good you are or what's going on good, because if it's good, they'll know, or something like that, something stupid like that. And I still struggle to this day, about this kind of having friends who would genuinely be excited about the good things that are going on with you, you know? It's almost like you feel a little bad if, it's like it's almost like you, and I hated this phrase, but it's true, I think. You have to upgrade your friends, you have to upgrade the people. If someone's gonna be depressed because you're telling them you're positive, you know, or roll their eyes or whatever, you gotta move on, you know what I mean? And that was hard for still is hard for me to do that, I get attached to people, no matter what the way they process it. So I really do want to have more friends that I can do exactly what you're describing, which is share the positives. And
yeah.
I think it provides a positive upward spiral as opposed to a positive downward spiral.
Right, right. Like,
Yeah.
I have lots of people in my life that I know would be happy to hear that I just did something that made me feel really great, you
Yeah,
know?
sure.
So,
Yep. The whole average of the 5 people you hang around with the most, it's so true, so true. And that was, what those early days of recovery was, because if I had, and they existed. I told you about that black belt men's meeting. If I'd had the wrong crew, even in recovery, if I'd had the wrong friends around me, I was thinking before, like I said, I built the infrastructure. I didn't build anything. I was just trying to save my ass. And like if I'd had the wrong crew around me, folks who were in recovery and were big book thumpers who didn't really think about this stuff like you and I are talking about, or delve deeper into it like a therapist or whatever, I wouldn't have made it. You know what I mean? I had to have those people who didn't judge and were happy when good things happen and supportive when bad things happen. And
Hmm.
I never had that in my life to that time. Never. Not in my family, not in the friends that, my in my younger days.
Yeah.
That was a blessing, truly, that I did not expect.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been a lively, interesting discussion. And thank you so much, Mike.
I have to say one thing that, Renee Brown
Brene Brown. Yeah.
says that I think I have a little bit of a shame hangover. It's like, when you are this revealing, especially in public, you're like, "Holy shit, what did I say?" kinda thing, and it feels that way right now, and I think you gotta keep doing that if you wanna grow, you
I
know?
know. I think about that. Like the last few days, I was like, oh, I don't want to do my channel anymore. I don't want to get out there anymore. I think it's a bad idea. That makes you think about, you know, keeping it going if you want to grow.
If you wanna grow, and that's where the courage comes in, and the crazy part about it, as Renee has proven, is that many people, most people, think of it as a strength, which sounds crazy, but it's true, if you're vulnerable and honest to people, regard it as a positive, whereas you're thinking of it as a negative.
Well, I just hope it helps people out there.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just hope it helps. So, all right, everybody. Well, we'll see you next time. We'll tune in next week.
Take
Take
care.
care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Mike. Bye.